concurrences? Do you want to? 11, okay. Yeah. Let's start with, where's Senator Watson at? Did he leave? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we're getting ready to roll here. Okay, Stacy has 11 concurrences, so we're going to start with that.
Let's go. Senate Bill 70, Adult Education High School Diploma Pathways, Maryland Diploma Works Pathway. This departmental bill establishes the Maryland Diploma Works Pathway within the Maryland Department of Labor. The House amendments make this bill identical to House Bill 297 as passed by the Senate. The recommendation is to concur.
Okay, do we have a motion? Okay, motion to concur from Senator Carrozza, second from Senator Brooks. Discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to concur, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Stacy?
Senate Bill 99, Open Meetings Act, County Boards of Education, Enhanced Requirements, Local Boards of Education Transparency Act. This bill makes local boards of education and the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners subject to enhanced requirements under the Open Meetings Act. The House amendments strike the provision prescribing what events may not be considered pornographic or obscene events for purposes of redaction of the video archives. We also have HB 154, which is the cross-file, and it's a request to recede. So I don't know how the committee wishes to proceed on this. SB 99 and HB 154. Both of them. SB 99 has the amendment. It stripped off the floor amendment that was added by Senator Reedy on this bill. And the Senate added back the amendment to House Bill 154 the other day on the floor. So now they're asking the committee to recede, the Senate to recede.
Okay, Senator Kagan, you want to weigh in?
I'm sponsor of the Senate bill. This is the Corman-Kagan Annual Transparency Bill. We have passed it unanimously. There was a floor amendment that was added that we thought was friendly. The House doesn't find it friendly. They've stripped it off. It was added back on a 22-20 vote the other day when some folks were busy and all that. I would like to recede. I'd like to pass it clean. The amendment, I think, is not a problem, except it's a problem in the House. We don't think it's additive. As I said on the floor the other day, we give our local education association, our local boards, our local boards autonomy, and we trust that they will protect their student body and the broader community. So I vote to recede.
Okay, do you want to move that?
Sorry.
Okay, the vice chair moves to recede. A second from Senator Washington. Discussion. Senator Carrozza.
One, I just would like to better understand the base bill, and the reason I'm asking is, as you know, I had the local bill earlier on Somerset County about, they're moving to make sure they're in compliance with the Open Meetings Act. So I wanted to make sure I understood this new, if there's now additional criteria. And then two, I just wanted to better understand the amendment that we were going back and forth on.
Okay.
So could you, so it's base bill and the.
Sure. So as you may recall, we started with the State Board of Elections, then we went to County Boards of Elections, we went to all the state agencies.
Is it education or elections?
I said elections.
Okay.
And we've been going through all the different things, and in all of them, it's been consistent. You have to post the meeting materials and agenda at least 48 hours in advance. You have to live stream the meeting. You have to post the post the video for at least 5 years, and you have to post the meeting minutes within 48 hours after they've been approved. That's what's governing virtually every department and agency. There are exemptions when there are field trips. There are exemptions when there's personnel or awkward, like the 911 board doesn't do stuff related to cybersecurity, and there are exemptions where you don't have to be live streaming. But everybody's complying and finding it easy to do. So this year, and maybe the last, is about our local boards of ed. Just making sure that everyone is complying at the same level in the same way that all the other departments and agencies. So that's what the bill is that we passed out of this committee, and my folder is coming to me, but I believe, Stacy, it came out unanimously. And then there was a floor amendment clarifying that if there was porn that was in a curriculum, that would not be live streamed. And I think that is obvious and evident, but it was the judgment that, like, it didn't do harm to the bill, but that everybody would make that obvious call. And so we sent it over with that. The House did not find it necessary, and they have already appointed a conference committee if we don't recede.
I just want to make a slight correction to
Please.
that. So the
going
amendment
blind.
said that they could redact or part of the live video stream if a pornographic or obscene event occurred or an instance where a student's privacy was violated, that otherwise they can't redact the video archive. The Reedy amendment added a pornographic or obscene event under item 1 does not include school-provided materials or reading materials available to a student. So if a parent was reading from a book that was in the curriculum that turned out to be pornographic, that could not be redacted from the live video stream under those requirements. The House does not want that amendment, but they're okay with the PZAM amendments that said that a stream could be redacted for a pornographic or obscene event or an instance where a student's privacy was violated. So we're talking about that Reedy amendment.
The PZAM amendment sort of addresses it.
Yes.
I mean, I understand the belts and suspenders aspect of the Reedy amendment, but at this point, belts and suspenders, I don't want the bill to die. I mean, I'm inclined to support the motion to recede, but obviously everybody can vote the way they want. But that's really the issue on the table. So we had a motion to recede in a second. We could have some discussion. We could take a roll call.
Sure.
Sure.
I'm just trying to, the PZAM amendment says that you can redact if a student's privacy is violated, and
Meeting of the Board of Education, say a student's name got mentioned about an incident and the student turned out to violate their privacy, then they could go back to that video stream and they could take that portion out of the archived video stream.
okay.
Or say somebody ran in front of the camera, did a flasher. They could take that out of the video stream. It wasn't forever. What Senator Reedy was saying is if they're reading a book that was in the curriculum that turned out to be pornographic in nature, you couldn't take that out or redact that from that. Those are the two kind of instances.
So what happens in those situations?
What do you mean, what happens?
So if a participant is reading a school book, a library book, and I guess there's a pornographic section to it, what happens?
It would be a judgment call of the Board of Education, whether that was pornographic, and they could determine that they could redact it, but they would have to go to the Open Meetings Board and let them know that, in fact, they did redact this material.
So they still have the leeway too, okay.
Yes.
I'm not sure I appreciate the Reedy amendment got on there. I'm not sure it really does much in reality, I think in the real world, but can we have a motion recede in a second? Further discussion? Do we need a roll call, or are we going to just take a vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion recede, raise your hand. Okay, all opposed. We've got Simonaire, Carosa, and Gallion in the dissent, so the motion to recede does carry.
And that would mean that there's a motion to concur on Senate Bill 99.
Correct. So now we have a motion to concur on House Bill 9.
Senate Bill 99.
Is everybody okay just having their same vote, in this case, for the motion to concur on the cross file? Okay, raise your hand if everybody's good with that. Okay, everybody's recorded the same way on the other bill. Stacy, back to you.
Okay, these are much easier. Senate Bill 218, State Superintendent of Schools, prolonged state of emergency, authority to declare. The House amendments make this bill identical to House Bill 288 as passed by the Senate. The recommendation is to concur.
Okay, motion to concur is in front of us. Senator Washington, are you moving to concur? Senator, okay, Senator from, get somebody else involved. Senator Watson, yes?
Senate Bill 218, the prolonged state of emergency for the State Superintendent of Schools.
So we just take our same vote.
No, this
This
is a different
motion to
bill.
concur.
It's a motion to concur because the House amendments make this bill identical to House Bill 288 as passed by the Senate.
Right, the House, we'll put the House in the same form as the bill we passed. So we're moving to concur on the House bill so that it matches what we passed out of the committee. So that's the motion in front of us, a motion to concur. Okay, all in favor of the motion concur, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. Stacey.
Senate Bill 237, Election Law, Presidential Electors, Selection and Voting. This bill alters procedures for the selection of presidential elector nominees, including alternate electors, and for the vote of presidential electors. The House amendments add provisions to account for the National Popular Vote Agreement going in and out of effect. They correct cross-references to federal law and require the state administrator of elections to serve as the secretary at the meeting of the electors. The motion is to, or the recommendation is to concur.
Okay, the vice chair moves to concur. Is there a second? Second from Senator Harris. Discussion, questions? Yes, Senator Guyon.
This will make it the same as the House bill. It passed 128 to 0.
It will, yeah.
So-
You're going to see shortly on the voting list is the House bill here, and then we'll make some corrections to make them identical.
Okay, so we have a motion to concur, make them identical. All in favor of the motion concur? Raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. Stacy?
Senate Bill 292, County Boards of Education, Student Transportation, Sunset Repeal and Study. This bill repeals the sunset provisions of Chapter 197 and 198 of 2021, which authorize a county board of education to provide alternate transportation for specified public school students to and from school. The House amendments make this bill identical to House Bill 319 as passed by the Senate. The recommendation is to concur.
Okay, again, similarly, it's matching the bills. Yes, motion to concur. Would you like to do motion concur?
Passed on the Senate, is that,
Correct.
motion to concur?
Okay, Senator Carrozza moves to concur, second from the vice chair. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. Stacy?
Senate Bill 311, Education, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future revisions. The bill makes various revisions to the Blueprint for Maryland's Future regarding funding, reporting requirements, teacher credentialing, dual enrollment, the Career and Technical Education Committee, among other things. The House amendments strike all the Senate amendments and conform it to House Bill 490 as passed by the House. The recommendation is to not concur and appoint a conference committee.
Okay, Senator Harris moves to not concur, second from the vice chair. Questions for Stacy on the motion to not concur and appoint a conference committee? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, that motion to not concur carries. Stacy?
Senate Bill 359, Child Care Facilities Criminal History Records Check Requirement. In general, the bill requires the State Department of Education to establish a centralized unit for the processing and management of criminal history records checks and probationary employment qualifications for certain child care teachers. The House amendments make this bill identical to House Bill 635 as passed by the Senate. The recommendation is to concur.
Okay, Senator Harris moves to concur, Senator Brooks second. Again, matching bills, discussion. All in favor of the motion concur, raise your hand. opposed, motion carries. Stacy?
Senate Bill 402, Residential Child Care Programs, Education of Children and Training of Child and Youth Care Practitioners. In general, the bill requires a licensed operator of a residential child care program that receives state funding and has legal custody or care and control of a specified child to provide specified educational opportunities to the child, and requires a training program for specified residential child and youth care practitioners. The House amendments make this bill identical to House Bill 396 as passed by the Senate. The recommendation is to concur.
Okay, Senator Brooks moved to concur, second from Senator Harris. All in favor of the motion to concur, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. Stacy?
Senate Bill 535, County Boards of Library Trustees, Membership, Student Member. This bill authorizes a County Board of Library Trustees to provide for the selection of a student member. The bill also establishes the qualifications, term of office, and voting rights of the student member if selected. The House amendments make this bill identical to House Bill 586 as passed by the Senate. Recommendation is to concur.
Okay, Senator Harris moves to concur, Senator Brooks second. All in favor of the motion to concur, raise your hand. Opposed, motion carries. Stacy?
My last one. Senate Bill 685, State Department of Education Sexual Abuse and Misconduct Model Response Policy Requirements. This bill requires the State Department of Education to develop a model sexual abuse and sexual misconduct response policy that includes specified components to be used by local school systems. The House amendments make clarifying changes and prohibit a model response policy from impeding or compromising relevant entities from conducting an investigation into an allegation of sexual abuse or sexual misconduct. The recommendation is to concur.
Okay, motion to concur is in front of us. Second from Senator Brooks. Discussion, questions? All in favor of the motion to concur, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, that's the extent of Stacy's concurrences. Devin has no concurrences. We do have a couple matters we'll end up with April, but in the meantime, we have a list of, 8.
Some easy ones too.
Oh, you have some ones? Yeah, okay, let's take a couple easy ones. Let's go to April for a couple easy ones. We'll maybe defer one or two that are a little more challenging until after we get through these votes of 8 bills, okay?
Okay. Senate Bill 325, Land Use Permitting, Development Rights, the Maryland Housing Certainty Act. This bill makes changes to state land use laws aimed at providing regulatory certainty and construction certainty for residential housing developments. The House amendments make technical changes and add an exemption for certain taxes and fees imposed to finance a county debt. These changes conform the bill to House Bill 548 as already passed by the Senate. The recommendation would be to concur.
Okay, this is the Augustine bill. We had the House bill on the floor today. This will match. Senator Augustine's good with all of these amendments in any event. So anybody want to move to concur? Okay. Vice Chair, second from Senator Harris. Any further discussion on that housing regulatory certainty bill? Motion concur, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. April?
Next one is Senate Bill 523, Department of Natural Resources, Water Resources, Identification of Vernal Pools. This bill requires the Department of Natural Resources, in coordination with the Maryland Department of the Environment, to create and maintain a list of vernal pools in the state and establishes related requirements for DNR. The House amendment simply subtitled the bill to be the Jack Cover Vernal Pools Act of 2026. This is, I believe, was the Senate bill sponsor's amendment. So again, the recommendation would be probably to concur.
Okay, Senator Washington. Okay, Senator Washington moves to concur. Second from Senator Harris. Yes, Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. According to the floor system, the House bill is in Senate rules.
Yeah, they weren't planning on passing it.
They just, it was late. It came over late.
Okay, so we're going to concur with something that we then can't send back to them?
Right.
Why are we sending it?
Okay, we're just,
We're just concurring. The House just added an amendment offered by Senator Washington.
okay.
So right now, only the Senate bill is passing unless the House bill makes it out of rules.
Looking at the chair of the Rules Committee, I just, there are people who work their bills pretty hard, and I just don't know whether, if we're moving the Senate, whether we might also want to be cognizant of our friends in the House if it's something we're concurring with.
Okay, that's a Rules Committee issue.
Okay.
You know, right now,
To the degree that
we'll deal.
the Rules Committee wants
That
to
could be a rule,
consider.
we'll leave that up to the wisdom of our chair of the Rules Committee to figure the
Okay.
House bill status
May I
in the
ask?
future.
May I ask, so that we don't have to come up again, that if the Rules Committee brings something out that this committee has already voted on its cross-file, whether to concur or whatever, that could be considered the vote? Or is that not an okay thing?
No, we would need to bring it up
We
in the
would?
voting
Okay.
session
All right.
and
Thank
amend
you.
it. Or potentially, I don't know how it's coming out, but we would have to vote on it.
Okay, right now, we just have a motion to concur and a second in front of us on this particular. All in favor of the motion concur, moved by Senator Washington, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. Is that the extent of the easy ones, or do you have one more?
I've got two that are probably quasi-easy.
Okay, let's go for it. Let's do it.
House Bill 146, Environment On-Site Wastewater Systems, Requirements for Inspections and Pumping Services, and Implementation Dates. This is a receipt request. So as it came over from the House, House Bill 146 established requirements related to the pumping and inspection of septic systems associated with certain rental properties and home sales. The amendments struck the inspection and pump-out requirements, retaining only the extension of certain deadlines under Chapter 419 of 2022. The House would like the full bill, so they are asking us to recede. But I would suspect this would have issues on the floor with that.
I think we went through that whole episode with Senator Brooks, and I would
Not recede.
I would say I would suggest we move not to recede. If we'll go back to the floor and we'll have to, the way we, yeah, because they want to put us back to the same place we were when we went out. Yeah, okay, so we had a motion not recede, a second. All in favor of the motion to not recede, raise your hand. All opposed, okay, that motion carries.
Okay, and last quasi-easy one, House Bill 663, Department of the Environment, Federal Environmental Policy Reporting. This bill requires the Maryland Department of the Environment to report to the General Assembly by July 1st, 2026, and every 6 months thereafter on any legally valid changes in federal environmental policy as specified. Senator Reedy, as you may recall, added an amendment on the Senate floor that required the report to include federal environmental changes are related to nuclear power. It sounds like the Department of the Environment pushed back on those provisions in the House, arguing that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and Nuclear Regulatory Commission, rather than MDE, regulate nuclear power. Therefore, potential state responses to cases related to nuclear power are quite limited, unlike the factors in the bill as passed by the House. So therefore, the House is asking us to recede from that Senate amendment.
So the Reedy Amendment, which we took, dealt with nuclear. The House is saying in effect that, that those issues involving nuclear are within the purview of the federal government, and therefore,
They're saying that it's beyond the scope of what MDE should be looking at in an environmental federal policy report.
Okay, well, I think that probably makes some sense to me. So, okay, I would suggest we move to recede and move forward with this. Okay, and second from Senator Washington. Okay, all in favor of the motion to recede, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, that carries. Okay, why don't we defer what you have left? And let's look at the list. We spent a lot of time on the HB 6 Senate Bill 420 cover. Let's leave that. I think we may have a path forward based on the conversation we had the other day with some language. But let's wait to on the House Bill 168 Vogel bill. Where are we on that? Are we have?
We're in a good place.
Okay, let's start with the Vogel bill. We'll go through. There's only 8 bills on this list. We'll take care of HB 6, the SB 420 matter, and then we're going to go back for 1 or 2 other issues. Okay, so let's go to House Bill 168 from Delegate Vogel.
House Bill 168, Housing and Community Development, Affordable Housing, Educator Workforce Housing, and Municipal Corporations. This bill expands the purpose and eligible recipients of funding from the Housing Innovation Fund, Housing Innovation Pilot Program, and Neighborhood and Community Assistance Program administered by the Department of Housing and Community Development to support the development of educator workforce housing. There are some amendments that were passed around on your desk. They were separate from the voting packet being offered by Delegate Vogel that address some concerns that were raised at the bill hearing and that were also some different concerns that were subsequently related by PSAM. The amendments strike the new definition of school purposes and instead say that a county board may consider the provision of educator workforce housing as a school purpose. The amendments also restrict the eligibility for educator workforce housing to employees other than administrators.
Okay, so those were the PSAM's concerns are addressed by these amendments is
Yes,
the bottom
and then
line?
part of the amendment, I think, addresses something that Senator Kagan raised at,
Okay.
during the bill hearing.
Okay, so I think with these amendments, my understanding is no real opposition to the bill, but with that said, we'll take questions. Okay, Senator Washington.
I guess, well, my school district opposes it. I've talked with them, and they don't feel like that they have want anything to do with housing, that's very much outside of what they do. So since requiring that somehow is struck, I don't really know what the bill does.
I've spoken with Dewana, was
Yeah.
part of these conversations with
Yeah.
Sam.
Yeah.
It's authorizing. So the school purposes language, that
That's,
has to do by saying basically a local board that wants to, this is really for particularly local boards that want to use existing school property to create workforce or educator
they
workforce
can
housing.
do that already.
This would just be very explicit that they can still consider that a school purpose, which I believe carries certain sort of tax advantages and other things for those, again, for those local boards that want to do it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are we creating those tax purposes? Because at the moment, they don't exist.
They do for property that
Employers.
belongs to the school that is used for school purposes. Yes, like it's got certain, my understanding is sort of tax kind of shelters.
Do school systems pay taxes?
Well, that's just it, they don't.
Right.
So that's, if they want to, so if a school wants to retain that school property and develop it into educator workforce housing, I believe the intent here is to allow them to sort of retain that tax exempt kind of status for that property.
My understanding is that they would have to create a separate entity that did that. So I'm okay. If people want to,
It's just authorized.
fine, that's okay.
I mean, nobody's
It's
required
authorizing,
to do anything. It says may, just authorizing, so. Okay.
Move the amendments.
Okay, the vice chair moves on the amendments. Senator Washington seconds the Vogel amendments. All in favor of the Vogel amendments, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Anybody opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We have
Bill is amended.
House Bill 168 is amended. Vice chair moves the bill as amended. Is there a second? Second. Okay, Senator Harris moves the bill. 168 is amended. It's in front of us. All in favor, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Okay, Senator Gallion, Senator Washington, and Senator Simoneau are opposed.
So, Washington, you abstain?
No, I
You oppose?
Okay, she's
So,
opposed. Simoneau and Gallion are opposed, so the bill carries 8-3. Okay, let's go down to this bill. House Bill 182 was referenced, I think, a little earlier by Stacy in the concurrence section, so refresh everybody's memory on House Bill 182.
House Bill 182, Election Law, Presidential Electors, Selection and Voting. This bill modifies provisions governing the nomination and election of presidential electors in the state and the casting of electors' votes, primarily by requiring electors to pledge to cast their votes for president and vice president in a manner consistent with the party or unaffiliated presidential candidate which nominated them for elector, And 2, establishing procedures for the appointment of substitute electors in the event of a vacancy in the office of elector, and establishing that an elector vacates the office if the elector refuses to present a ballot, presents an unmarked ballot, or presents a ballot marked in violation of their pledge. There are amendments offered by Senator Kagan. They were on page 11, but there's a standalone that's a replacement amendment. Essentially, when going through the amendments for the Senate bill and this bill, there was some differences that were caught, so we wanted to make sure that those were correct. So they correct the function paragraph, they make other changes to make them identical, and the only real substantive change that is now in both bills is to require the state administrator of elections to appoint a single presidential elector if a vacancy occurs under certain circumstances.
Okay, Vice Chair Kagan? Okay, the Vice Chair moves favorable on these amendments, second from Senator Harris. Questions for the Vice Chair or Stacy? Okay, all in favor of the Kagan amendments on House Bill 182, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Okay, amendments carry. 182 as amended is in front of us. Vice Chair moves favorable, Senator Harris second. Discussion? All in favor of House Bill 182 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. Okay, let's go down House Bill 200. We're actually second on this. JPR has sent us a product on House Bill 200, so that's the product we'll be working off of.
House Bill 200, Sale of Residential Real Property, Required Flood Risk Disclosure. This bill requires, subject to specified exceptions and beginning July 1st, 2027, a seller of real property to provide specified flood risk information to a purchaser before the parties enter into a contract. This requirement only applies to residential real property improved by 4 or fewer single-family units. By June 1st, 2027, the Maryland Department of the Environment must develop and publish a real property flood risk disclosure statement form for use in connection with the bill's requirements. There are no amendments. There was no opposition at the bill hearing in JPR. The vote in JPR was 9-1.
Okay, got a motion from the Vice Chair on the JPR bill that had no opposition. Second from Senator Washington. We have Senator Watson.
Yeah, just a question, April. Did you just say this only applies to 4 housing units or less? Is that what you said?
Correct.
So if there's a new development, as long as it's 4 or less?
No, so this, it doesn't apply to if you were selling an entire apartment building, is my understanding. If you're selling like a townhome that is part of a larger HOA, it would apply. That is my understanding.
But you said 4, so the HOA is 4 or less?
But you're not selling the entire HOA. You would just be selling the one unit.
But the one unit is a part of a 4-unit development or less. Is that what you're saying?
No, even if the one unit is, my understanding is even if the one single unit is part of a larger
HOA?
HOA, you would still have to include this disclosure.
I didn't understand why you said 4. I thought you said something about 4.
Yeah, my understanding of the way that this works, my understanding of that limitation was to address, as the bill came in, it was broader, and there was a concern by the developers of large multi-unit residential properties that in selling like the entire multi-unit building that they would get wrapped into this, and that they didn't feel like it was applicable or that it was kind of useful.
Okay, Senator Carrozza.
I'm playing a little bit of catch up, so bear with me. So I saw that there was some testimony. I don't know if they were offering amendments. The Maryland Building Industry Association favorable with amendments. And then going back to Senator Watson's question, I was really trying to understand, since how this bill works for individual condo owners.
Right, so those were amendments that were offered on the House side and accepted, so they're already in the bill.
But what do they do?
So That was the amendment to limit it to the sales of residential property improved by 4 or fewer single-family units.
So if you're a condo owner and it's your seasonal place, what are they required to do now under this legislation?
It's sort of a standard disclosure form that MDE would have to develop that just explains the flood risk for
But
that
isn't that already
property.
isn't that already required by insurance and everything? That's
It
what I-
can be, and that's sort of, this mostly sort of aligns with a lot of those sorts of requirements, is my understanding.
You said nobody is currently opposed to the bill?
Correct.
Well, on the House side, 36 people voted against it.
There were amendments, were there
Well,
not?
was
Okay.
that-
I mean,
Okay.
that's,
Okay, you're
I
right.
think that's more of just a
Yeah.
political
Okay, I got you.
question. There are
Okay.
no stakeholder groups that are opposed to this.
Okay, there are no, we have the product from JPR, so there are no amendments or take up, it's either up or down. Okay, so, anybody want to move the bill from JPR? Sure, Vice Chair Kagan.
So there were some folks I'm looking, there's some people who weren't loving it in Economic Matters, but they seem to be okay with it over here. So.
Correct.
Can you
Based off
speak
of
to the
those
amendments?
Amendments that were added in the House.
Right, that's what I assume. Could you just say one more time, just highlight what those were that,
So those were to
sorry.
really narrow this so that it is applying to single-family.
okay, that goes back to Senator Watson's question.
I believe that it is like single-family unit as opposed to a unit in a multifamily building.
Thank you.
I don't
That's
think would be
helpful.
covered.
Okay, because like NIOP changes positions and, okay, thank
Okay,
you.
Senator Washington?
I support this because it's making progress, and so that's why I'll support it. But I continue to be frustrated that one industry seems to block all of our efforts for flood mitigation or environmental protection or protecting the environment or giving property tax credits to people who want to preserve their land, all under the guise of that it'll increase costs. But I think this is a step forward in the right direction, so I support it.
We have a motion? Okay, we had a motion from Senator Harris, a second from Senator Washington. Okay, all in favor, House Bill 200 clean from JPR, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? Got Senator Carrozza and Senator Gallion opposed. Okay, let's go down to House Bill 575 from Delegate Wilkins. Stacy?
House Bill 575, Public School Student Attendance, Excused Absences for Civic Engagement. This bill requires each local Board of Education to adopt an attendance policy for public school students that treats a student's absence as excused if during the regular session of a public-facing body, the student testifies at a hearing of the public-facing body, conducts civic engagement activities as defined by the bill, or participates in the Maryland General Assembly program. Attendance policies and procedures under the bill must authorize a student to be excused for at least 15 hours or 2 school days to testify, to conduct civic engagement activities, or the length of time of the PAGE program. Excused absences for testifying or conducting civic activities under the bill must be in addition to any excused absences under existing policies or procedures. There is one amendment offered by the chair on page 13 with a reprint on page 15. Instead of requiring a new policy, this amendment requires an existing student attendance policy to include a provision that allows an excused or discretionary absence for a public school student participating in civic engagement activities and specifies that certain types of activities must be included within the definition of civic engagement activities. The amendment strikes the requirements specifying the amount of hours or days that must be excused.
Second.
Okay, we had a motion on the amendment, second from the Vice Chair. Questions and discussion? And can I just add, the amendment in part is the result of some discussions so that this amendment will work on the House side, just so you know, for what it's worth. With that said, we'll go to the Vice Chair, and then Senator Gallion, questions?
So, Stacy, you mentioned that it strikes the hour, so would that allow, like, almost unlimited hours?
So no, it's
How
it's
does
more,
that work?
it's just more discretionary. So this is very prescriptive in that it requires this amount, and all of the county boards, at least from the testimony and discussions, they have these existing policies, and a lot of them have already made decisions about them. This is just to ensure that the Maryland Page program is included in that, and certain various activities are included, but it's less, in a box saying that this is required. The biggest concern expressed was that the definition of chronic absenteeism includes excused and unexcused absences. So even if they're absent from school for positive things, every day, every hour counts toward that. So there's just some concern about proliferation of these excused or discretionary absences. And the belief is that this amendment will kind of take that back a little bit and let the locals drive this.
Thank you for that explanation. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Questions for us? Yes, Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I like the amendment, I like the bill. I'm wondering, how do SMOBs, the student members on the boards of ed, I assume they're covered elsewhere in code, or is
They're
that?
already covered by these unexcused absences provisions. I mean, it's the point, is that the state board has, in regulations, there's already categories that do this. Again, and most of the counties have something for civic engagement already. This is just kind of saying, well, we want to make sure that the PAGE program is covered. We're just making sure that certain things are covered in that while still giving some, retaining discretion in some of the counties.
Okay, additional questions? Okay, we've got a motion. First, we have to take up the amendments. Okay, have we adopted the amendments? Okay. About an underlying bill 575. Do we move it?
We have the amendments on the table.
Oh, we still have the vote on the amendments. All in favor of the amendments, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, we have 575 as amended. Is there a motion?
Move favorable.
Okay, Vice Chair moves the bill as amended, 575. Is there a second? Okay. Okay, yes, Senator Harris.
So appreciate it, Mr. Chair. So this is a good bill. I'm going to vote on it. But once we get to the floor, I'll probably hold it, make sure it's actually, spot on and what we're actually looking for.
Understood. Okay, House Bill 575 as amended is before us. All in favor? Raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. House Bill 640, Devin.
House Bill 640, Mandated Reports, Boards and Commissions Revisions. This departmental bill alters the composition of specified boards, commission, and committees, repeals specified boards and councils, repeals specified reporting requirements by affected bodies, and consolidates reporting requirements by specified entities and makes stylistic changes. The bill takes effect July 1, 2026. There are amendments on page 18 of your packet offered by Senator Hester with a reprint following. The amendments restore the working groups of the Climate Change Commission and alter reporting dates.
Okay. Everybody, any questions? Katie, Senator Hester?
Thank you. No, I had a good conversation with the Department of Budget and Management, and they provided a list of the dates which the committees were established by, and so some of them were, a decade or more old, and hadn't been active for lots of times. The ones that we restored in the amendments were the ones that were more recently created, and we agreed to work on those over the summer to figure out what needs to happen to those.
Okay, so you move the amendments on House Bill 640, a second from Vice Chair. Okay, questions? Okay. Okay, all in favor of the amendments, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. House Bill 640 is amended is in front of us. Motion from Senator Harris, second from Senator Hester. We good? Okay, all in favor, House Bill 640 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, motion carries. Let's go to the next page. Got House Bill 1335, Devin, Delegate Kaiser.
House Bill 1335, Department of Information Technology Staffing and Capability Assessment, Independent Study. This bill requires the Department of Information Technology to procure the services of a third-party entity to conduct an independent study that includes an assessment of information technology and cybersecurity staffing needs across the principal departments of the executive branch of state government, and make recommendations for updated IT classifications and pay scales for IT and cybersecurity professionals informed by comparable compensation data from other agencies across state and local government. The Department of Information Technology must submit the study to the Governor and General Assembly by November 1st, 2027. The bill takes effect July 1, 2026, and terminates June 30, 2028. There are no amendments.
Senator Hester, your thoughts on this?
This is being put forward by my co-chair on the Joint Committee on Cyber IT and Biotech. I think it's really an important study. She's confirmed that there is money in this year's budget for the hiring, so I would move the bill favorably.
Okay. House Bill 1335, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Senate Bill 949 from Vice Chair Kagan.
Senate Bill 949, Election Law, Canvassing of Absentee Ballots, Preemption by Federal Judicial Action. This emergency bill, if, with regard to the 26 and 28 elections, there is a federal judicial action regarding timely receipt of absentee ballots that preempts the State Board of Election regulations and requires the State Administrator of Elections to establish a uniform tabulation policy for absentee ballots with federal contrast to implement and comply with federal action. The uniform tabulation policy must ensure that votes for non-federal contests on absentee ballots mailed by Election Day and received in accordance with state regulations are canvassed in accordance with state law and regulations. If implementation of the tabulation policy is required, the state administrator must notify voters of federal and state ballot receipt deadlines and encourage early ballot return with written notice, a social media campaign, and mass media communications. Senator Kagan has an amendment on page 63 of your packet, reprint on page 68. This requires the state board and each local board to refer to absentee ballots delivered by internet as printed home ballots in various communications. It provides the circumstances under which an absentee ballot is considered timely and may be counted. If a federal law or federal court establishes requirements for the timeliness of absentee ballots with federal contests that are different from the previous requirements, ballots with state contests that meet the requirements stated will be considered timely and counted unless rejected for an unrelated reason other than timeliness, and requires the state board to adopt regulations consistent with a federal law if necessary.
Okay, Vice Chair Kagan, anything you want to add?
I think Stacy did a great job. I'm happy to take any questions. We've been working on this for a long time, and it's an emergency bill because now there's a presidential executive order, and Maryland is one of 15 states that says we will accept like a soldier's ballot if it was postmarked in advance but arrives afterwards. That's been law here in Maryland for a really long time, and I probably ought to get what year that was. And there are a few other pieces of this, but we want to make sure that we are both in compliance with any federal court rulings or executive orders while also defending our own laws. So I am moving the amendments. But happy to
Okay,
take questions
the
after
Vice Chair moves the amendments that she proffered, a second from Senator Harris. Okay, Senator Carrozza, just on the Kagan amendments right now.
I'm not sure I understand the Kagan amendments.
Okay, well, let's go back and ask the Vice Chair or Stacy any questions.
Codifies, the bill as introduced was an uncodified provision and only became into effect as contingent on a federal action, basically saying if receipt of absentee ballots after Election Day, meaning, I'm describing this badly, but if absentee ballots are received after Election Day, they can't be counted. The problem is that paper ballots, absentee ballots, the general order of it in our state law The contests are not just federal and state, and then there's no difference in pages. There's provisions on how to count it. I mean, there's like a whole slew of things. So what this would do is it codifies that what's in regulation now becomes into state law about when a ballot is considered timely received, especially for state contests. And if the federal law only if the federal law or a federal judicial action come back and they're contrary to what state law is, then the state administrator would have to put into place rules for how federal contests are counted differently than state contests. So it could mean a change in the way that the ballot is ordered. It could mean that, for example, federal contests would be on certain pages and then state and county contests are on other pages. So you could pull them apart and not jeopardize a person's ballot for state and county contests versus federal contests.
Can I try adding on, if I could?
Yes.
So this year, colleagues, as you know, we have mostly state and county races that are being considered, like in the June primary. We have each one congressional member on the ballot, but everything else, so one federal race, everything else is local. So if there's a ballot that arrives on the day after Election Day, it arrives Wednesday, but it was postmarked on or before Election Day, in Maryland, we would count it. The federal race, maybe that race, that vote for Congress couldn't be counted, but the vote for county executive, for state senator, for central committee, all that can be counted. And so this affirms that, sets up a process, educates our voters that they should get their ballots in soon. It also clarifies that the web-delivered ballots, which people find confusing and return at a much lower rate, they're going to be renamed print-at-home ballots. And so this is voter education and simplification while making sure that we can count ballots that are eligible.
Senator Carozza?
I'm trying to understand, what does this mean at the local level? Because I have not had the opportunity to talk to my 3 election directors in my counties. And 2, is there any time frame? I mean, is it open-ended?
We have a state certification law, and this doesn't change that. So there's still a deadline. It's just not by 8 p.m. on Election Day, which is what should mean no change. Stacy, do you want to?
Well, if there is a federal law or action, the state administrator will adopt regulations and then they'll educate the local election directors as to how they have to proceed. So they're not going at it alone. They're going at it with the direction of the state administrator only if certain actions occur.
This bill is in anticipation if there is federal action. So we're
Correct.
we're basically putting a hypothetical at this point in place because there's no federal action at this point?
Well, it's a contingency. So were to it occur, this would go into effect. Yes, because there's a Supreme Court case now that's being considered about the timely receipt of mail-in ballots. I mean, and so the decision is expected in no later than early June as all. So.
And of course, we're only here 3 months, so, the Supreme Court comes down with a ruling, it changes how ballots are, I think this is preemptive in the contingent upon something. If we don't do anything, then a little chaotic, because then we'll have a Supreme Court case talking about how votes are counted. We'll have a current state of state laws governing races that are not jiving. I mean, it would be kind of, so I think, I don't want to speak for the vice chair, this is in anticipation of a potential, obviously the Supreme Court doesn't come down that way, we're exactly where we are today, but if they do, we're telling our state administrator here, you need to do some things and take some steps to address and put in place some of the rules of the road under that scenario, I think. So
It's for planning purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, because it could be a very significant decision, and it could be expensive. And again, all of this can be done if people send in their ballots way before Election Day. Then none of it will matter that much.
Okay, Senator Harris?
So I think, Mr. Chair, that piece you would add to that. So the time period in which the Supreme Court comes back would be like early June time period, when in the midst of a actual election that would
Correct.
be almost taking place here in the state of Maryland. So this bill is vital for us to move forward. And this amendment is vital for us to move forward along with this bill.
Okay, so
The amendment's on the floor.
we have an amendment in front of us, a motion is second. Okay, all in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion carries. We now have Senate Bill 949 as amended before us.
Bill is amended.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of Senate Bill 949 as amended, raise your hand. Okay, okay, we have one abstention from Senator Senators Simonaire, Carrozza are abstaining, and Senator Gallion is a no. Do you have that, Lamora? Yes. Okay. Okay, with that, let's go back to the final bill from House Bill 6 that we started conversation the other day. And then there seemed to be some emergence of some consent. Senator Washington was sort of rallying some of the folks about some areas of agreement here. And I know that Stacy attempted to draft an amendment that embodies some of the, I would say, Washington, Carrozza, Simonaire theme of sorts, but I don't want to. Let Stacy describe the amendments and see if she captured what was being discussed.
So the amendments start on page 3, and the reprint starts on page 5. And it just does two things. The first, it exempts the University of Maryland Global Campus from the data collection provisions, and it restores the applicability for the pregnancy and parenting plan to public senior higher education institutions and adds community colleges.
Okay, Senator Washington, you're good with the amendments, okay. You want to move, do we move the amendments? Or Senator Washington, do you want to move the amendments, or?
Okay, then I will move the Washington amendment.
No, not, okay. Second, we have a motion from the Vice Chair on the amendments, second from Senator Harris. All in favor of the amendments, raise your hand. All opposed? Anybody opposed on the amendments? Okay, amendments carry. Okay, we now have the amendment on House Bill 6 before us. House Bill 6 is amended, and a motion from Senator Harris, a second from, we have a second? Second from the Vice Chair. Okay, all in favor of House Bill 6 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, that motion carries. Okay, so that completes our bills. We do have two. Okay, I apologize. You got that? Senator Gallion was no? Was a no on that last vote? Okay. My apologies. Okay, so that completes all that. We have two other matters. Okay, so we passed out a hunting bill, and we passed out a lead ammo bill. And the House has now taken action, sent it back to us. So April, tell the committee what they did, and then we have a couple options, and then we'll be done. Okay, so that's where we are.
All right. So first one is House Bill 1063, Natural Resources Hunting Management. As you may recall, House Bill 1063 alters Sunday hunting restrictions in the state to give the Department of Natural Resources more flexibility to meet the needs of specific counties and property owners. The bill was amended in the Senate to enhance reporting requirements, require DNR to publish and develop procedures for counties to request changes to their respective Sunday hunting regulations, and prohibit DNR from authorizing Sunday hunting under a deer damage permit in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Howard County, or Prince George's County. The House has asked us to recede on those amendments.
Okay, wait.
The House does not like the amendments. They have asked us to recede on them.
I was. 1063. No, our Senate.
Senate is reporting grade.
No.
What do we have?
What was the Senate vote on the floor on? Was it unanimous? I just want to check on one thing.
On the Senate bill?
Yeah, on the Senate bill. Okay, we took a vote on both bills.
0.
Yeah, okay. So we took a vote on the hunting bill, passed unanimously out of our chamber, And so I would say we stick with our unanimous vote out of the Senate and move not to recede. Let's stick with our, okay, so a motion from Senator Harris, second from the Vice Chair on our unanimous product that passed unanimously. All in favor of that position, raise your hand. All opposed, okay. The final act is on the lead ammo bill. Let's discuss that one.
Correct. So House Bill 1067, hunting lead and lead-based ammunition phase out. House Bill 1067, as it came in, had required the phase out of lead ammunition. As you may recall, there was a Senate amendment added by Senator Bailey on the floor that essentially struck that phase out and instead prohibits the donation of venison that was taken using lead-based ammunition. Again, the House has objected to that and has asked us to proceed on those amendments.
Okay, well, again, I think that particular bill as well passed with a strong vote in the Senate, and my suggestion is we move not to recede on that one, too. Let's stick with our guns. Okay, Senate,
And our
correct.
non-lead ammunition in those guns.
Senator Harris moved to not recede, second from Senator Brooks. All in favor of the motion not to receive, raise your hand. Okay, gentlemen and ladies and delegate senators, we're here. Oh, I'm supposed to give you a reminder for those interested at 6 o'clock if you want to celebrate our retiring senators, including our own Brian Simon Eyre. At 6 o'clock, you go down to Market House and you'll have, be some free food and drink. So with that, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Yeah, well, wait, not related. One other thing is, when we get to Monday, which is the last day,